Mentioning CM Punk during an interview with Inside the Ropes, former WWE star Paul London said, "I think Phil is another one of those guys who, is like a self-hype machine. And he's done great for himself, right? I mean, he's a huge pro wrestling star. You would think his experience in UFC would have humbled him some, but needless to say, he definitely understands the platform that he's on, and he uses it to the best of his capabilities. Not taking anything away of his stardom or his ability or his talent, he's certainly one of the best talkers in the business, and he's great at what he does." On his Legion of Raw podcast, former WWE writer Vince Russo said this about Matt Riddle when talking about his recent match against Gunther. "Riddle is believable to me. Riddle looks like an athlete to me. We know the MMA background, which they never sell. I don't mind. I mind when he has a long match with Sami Zayn. I mind when he has a long match with Kevin Owens. I don't mind when he has a long match from somebody who looks younger than him and is very athletic. He will not blow up. You could see his physique. He's very strong. The fact that he has a long match with Gunther and Gunther goes over, I don't think it hurt either one of them." Recalling her experience being backstage at AEW, Victoria said on GAW TV, "I even felt that at AEW. I went backstage to go find Sarah Stock. She goes, 'Are you going to come back here to say hi to me?' I go, can you meet me at the curtain?' I go, 'Oh no, all the new talent.' And then of course, when I went back there, I got the look like, what the F is she doing here? Excuse my language. I felt uncomfortable. Only Mark Henry, Sarah, Christopher Daniels, and just the people that we knew, even some of the people that we knew in the past, they were like, 'Are you going to watch the second show?' And I go, 'Let's go.' I felt very uncomfortable." With Kevin Nash previously throwing shade at LA Knight for being a ripoff of The Rock, Nash also accused the star of never getting over until recently. Now, Nash has taken to his Click This podcast to apologize, saying, "Well, one thing I've got to say is, 4 or 5 years ago, man, I thought wrestling was gonna die. I was just like, God, every show is bad. Then Raw started getting better. I've just never been a SmackDown guy. We didn't have SmackDown, and when I went back, I was rarely on it. I was always a Raw guy, so I just watch Raw. That's the show I watch. That's the show I watch every week. I watch NXT probably the second most of anything, and now that they're doing what they're sending Raw guys down to NXT, now it's got my interest because I'm trying to see who they're giving a rub to and that they're probably going to bring up to the main roster. Kevin Dunn has always been so far above everybody else from a production standpoint. There were a lot of people that were saying, and we talked about it, does Vince McMahon have his hands in creative and things like that? And it's like, I watched the show. I just said, am I the only one that sees like a better continuity going from match to interview? Like, it just seemed like things are clicking. If LA Knight, if the people, if he's the chosen one, if he's the people's champion, then he is the people's champion. It doesn't matter to me. If his segments do a number and that helps WWE while I'm a stockholder and it makes my buddy Paul's life easier, then get over, dude. It was just one of those things where I don't watch SmackDown. So dude, I didn't know who you were and I apologized. Some of us that are in professional wrestling actually watch sports, watch film, occasionally read a book. I do other things besides watch wrestling. There's 394 hours of wrestling on television a week. I just can't do it. It appears that controversial pro wrestling star Teddy Hart has been arrested, with it said that Ringside News has obtained police records that indicate on July 14th, Teddy Hart was taken into custody in Brevard County, Florida on charges related to marijuana, steroids, and MDMA. However, on July 15th, he was released on community supervision by Judge Speecher, who has imposed certain conditions. As part of this supervision, Teddy Hart will be required to make weekly check-in calls and may also be subjected to random drug testing. For more detailed information regarding the arrest, please find the attached arrest affidavit. Teddy Hart has faced various legal troubles in the past. These include arrests and charges related to drug possession, assault, and animal cruelty. Hart's history of legal issues has been a subject of concern and controversy within the wrestling community. Teddy Hart has also been accused of abuse in the past, and some of that was related to his unconventional, and some would say inexcusable, pro wrestling training that he put some people through. He was later charged for the strangulation of Maria Manic as well. In 2020, Hart was facing charges of injuring a child, elderly, disabled person, evading arrest with a vehicle, and possession of a controlled substance. reasons. We'll have to see how long he remains behind bars at this time. Teddy Hart has spent an extensive time period in jail over the years as he keeps getting into trouble. We can only hope that Teddy Hart can fix things and get back to the right mindset right now. As Rick Steiner previously was alleged to have made transphobic comments at Wrestlecon, the company announced recently that he would be allowed back. Now they have retracted this statement, writing, "Attention, Rick Steiner has been removed from WrestleCon. When we allowed Rick Steiner to return to our convention as a vendor guest of Tony Hunter Promotions, we did not adequately take into account the impact his past words from our last event still held in the LGBTQIA+ community. We initially allowed him to return because 1. We still feel that people deserve a second chance. 2. Rick did make an apology to all parties that chose to be present. 3. We lacked any type of code of conduct/harassment policy that clearly defined our expectations as a convention participant." After thoughtful dialogue with Brian Bell from SB Nation's Outsports and host of the LGBT in the Ring podcast on Monday morning, we agreed with his opinion it was necessary to have some type of public acknowledgement and apology from Rick Steiner at an absolute minimum to allow him to attend Detroit. Because we understand this issue required great urgency, we gave Rick Steiner 24 hours to make such a statement. Unfortunately, there is not currently, and we do not expect to receive such a statement, and we have therefore made a decision to revoke our permission for him to attend. Additionally, we have now created a first draft of our code of conduct and anti-harassment policy that will be posted on our website for everybody to see later today. We will continue to improve upon this code of conduct over time and with the cooperation of others. We understand and appreciate that there will be many differences of opinions among our participants, and we want to create a safe and enjoyable space for everybody at our conventions. At this time, we have partnered in solidarity with other wrestling industry convention leaders, notably Starrcast, Wrestlecade, and The Gathering, who also agree to adopt and adhere to a similar code of conduct for their events. With Bryan Danielson suffering a broken forearm during his match against Okada, the Wrestling Observer provided an update, writing, AEW President Tony Khan said Bryan Danielson's injury was a bit worse than they initially thought. No timetable for return, hasn't been coming to shows or meetings, but he has been in contact with Danielson frequently on ideas and thoughts. Reviewing Raw from this week, former WWE writer Vince Russo said this about the promo segment of Cody Rhodes. "It's everything about Cody's demeanor. Bro, this isn't Broadway. This is pro wrestling, and he goes out there with these monologues. He's Shakespearean, and he's on a Broadway stage, and it's like, this is freaking wrestling. Like, talk real. Wrestling needs to be real, okay, bro? I can't believe for the life of me a professional wrestler talks this prim and proper way using big words. What do you want to talk about? I don't get the whole Cody thing. I don't. I've never gotten the babyface thing. I don't get it, bro." When it comes to WWE having interest in signing the brother of Logan Paul, H. Jenkins of Ringside News said, "Logan Paul is having a great time in WWE, but we can confirm that the company has no creative plans for Jake Paul. It seems they will not be joining each other in WWE at this point." Taking to Twitter yesterday, John Cena Sr. promoted the recent AEW event, writing, "Should be a night of fierce action and great wrestling. July 19th, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., AEW All Elite Wrestling, TD Garden, Boston. Hope to see you there." As JD McDonough was recently called up from NXT to Raw, it looks like plans for the star have been called off, as WRKD Wrestling wrote that JD McDonough's Judgment Day plans have been halted for the time being. He lost to Apollo Crews during last night's main event taping. Prior to the most recent episode of AEW Collision, it appears that CM Punk led a talent meeting, with it reported that when Fightful heard that there was a talent meeting at that episode of Collision, we shortly found out later that it didn't make its way to talent who weren't there or are typically featured on Dynamite more than Collision. There was a good reason for that, it seems, as a large part of the meeting was about how Collision had differentiated itself from Dynamite to the point where many of Dynamite's usual detractors have taken a liking to Collision. CM Punk led the meeting, and there were several topics brought up on how Collision could separate itself from what fans see on Dynamite, including the finishes of some matches. They went over what was and wasn't good for Collision, such as finishes, shenanigans, and the like. There were also subjects covered such as promoting AEW-related projects and shows more, especially the Fight Forever video game. Some of the safety guidelines were also covered during the meeting. Speaking about how the MLW antitrust lawsuit is affecting WWE, Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio, WWE is very, very leery because of the MLW lawsuit, so they're not making. If that MLW lawsuit wasn't there, WWE, and it's not just these guys, the elite, there's other guys that this relates to that have interest at least in hearing from WWE, and in one case interested in going to WWE, and WWE has been uncharacteristically, not aggressively, trying to steal talent. Sticking with Seth Rollins, he said this on Impulsive on having to deal with hardships in professional wrestling. There's just a level of suffering you just have to be willing to endure. That's no joke. I think obviously there's a level of workmanship to it. Like, I'm not really trying to end you with a ladder to your body, but also there is no fighting it. If I'm throwing a ladder at you, they are just hard steel ladders, metal ladders, and they are just going to attack your body. You're going to try and survive it as best you can. When it comes to a spoiler on WWE's plans for Gable Stevenson, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said that they pushed on NXT the next week Gable Stevenson will make an announcement about his future. He didn't mention the World Championship in September, but I know that USA Wrestling officials would be furious that he beat everyone to make the team if he were to then pull out of the Worlds. We do know as of 2 weeks ago, he was committed to doing the World Championships. He brought up the choice of going back to college to win the NCAA title and then do the Olympics or training with NXT. The way it was done, and with the announcement next week on NXT, that normally would lead you to believe he was staying. He personally had elsewhere teased both returning to the University of Minnesota or even transferring to Iowa for his last season of eligibility, but that was also clearly just trying to get people talking about him. His brother, even though he works for WWE, has publicly said that he should try and put his name in the record books as the greatest American heavyweight of all time now, and then do pro wrestling after. On his podcast, former WWE writer Vince Russo criticized Finn Balor, saying, "Bro, can we just be totally honest here? Finn should be in NXT. Bro, he's not going to draw 3 people in WWE. Come on, it is what it is." Staying on the topic of NXT, this was said by the Wrestling Observer regarding the spike in numbers for viewers on the program and potentially competing with AEW Dynamite again. The 2 points most talked about by different people were that this is a contract year, so these gains are coming at a great time for the renewal price, and those in NXT who are definitely pushing for the idea of doing numbers that beat Dynamite. It appears a WWE Hall of Famer will be making an appearance at the upcoming Premium Live event, as it was reported that The Undertaker is slated to be in Detroit for SummerSlam weekend. PWInsider.com has confirmed. Of note, the WWE Hall of Famer is not slated to perform his One Dead Man show in Detroit the weekend of August 4th. Talking about his weight loss over the years, Gunther said this about it to Metro. "Everybody knows how I looked before, so everybody knows I really like to eat before that. I had to make a cut to that. To limit food intake is a little bit tricky. I love to cook and I like food, but at the end of the day, I've got to give credit to Kaiser and Vinci because they've been in incredible shape already. I just jumped on board with them and they kicked my butt to pull through even when it's difficult. Like I said, it always comes back to the support system, and that's from many areas in your life. To be fair, I've never had to sell it to anyone because when I signed with WWE, they just took me how I was. Since then, it hasn't really changed. Of course, the name has changed and I've dropped a few pounds, but besides from that, what I do in the ring or how I talk or anything, I feel like that has stayed pretty much the same." With Booker T previously going back and forth online with Ryback and the two talking about a fight, Booker gave an update on that situation, saying on his Hall of Fame podcast, "I was listening to Ryback talk, and he said he wanted to get paid for the fight. So, you want somebody to set it up, it'll fight me, and it'll be Ryback versus WWE, and I represent WWE. I don't know why WWE came into this. This is supposed to be between Ryback and I. It's supposed to be hand in hand. It's supposed to be like back in the day. I'm talking about two gunslingers back to back. 10 paces. Bang bang. I thought that was going to be something like that. But now he's talking about he has to get paid and this, that, and whatnot." On his Grilling JR podcast, Jim Ross gave a new update on his health, revealing he went to the ER. "I had to go to the emergency room this morning because I was concerned that the redness in my wounded leg was moving, and I've been warned about that you don't want to let this thing get out of control. You see it moving past a certain spot on your leg, you need to go to the emergency room right away to have them look at it." I did, and they looked at it, and they did nothing. They didn't need anything. They said, "You're fine. It's good that you're paying attention, but if it continues to move in a northern direction, you need to come back to see us." So I did that this morning. That's just part of the maintenance of this. I can tell you that right now. People say, "When are you coming back to work?" Well, I'd like to go back to work tonight. I'd like to go back to work next week, but I don't know when that's going to be. I've got to get past this thing, and I'm hoping that the two issues I have, I can protect my wound from infection in a pretty good way. I've got the medicines, the solvents, the covers, all that stuff, but man, what's killing me right now is the lower back thing. I've heard guys talk about sciatica in a not very positive way. It's really challenging. It's not good, man. So anyway, I'm working on that couple things. I can promise you that nobody in AEW wants to go back to work more than me. I miss being around the guys. I miss helping these young kids. I'm a good listener to them and for them. I miss all that. I'm an alpha personality, and I like to be around other people and like to help others." For a potential status update on Becky Lynch following SummerSlam, Sean Ross Sapp, a Fightful, said, "When asked about Becky Lynch taking time off after SummerSlam, we were told that wasn't the plan as of Money in the Bank weekend." When it comes to what is next for Bad Bunny in WWE, Steve Carrier of Ringside News said that WWE has a lot of things in the pipeline. It turns out that Bad Bunny's return to the company is certainly a part of those plans. Stay tuned. Explaining why the new owners of WWE may be hesitant to have Big E wrestle again, former writer for the company Vince Russo said on the Wrestling Outlaws, "Vince McMahon doesn't own the company anymore. This is on Endeavor's dime. So if you've got a guy that broke his neck and now you put him back out there and God forbid something happens again, now you're going to get the press of, why did you put your guy out there? This ain't Vince making the call anymore, bro. This is a whole new set of eyes and a totally different boss with a totally different mindset looking at this." For an update on the status of Bray Wyatt in WWE, Ringside News wrote that it was previously reported that Bray Wyatt has been around a few times. His plans are there for his return. A feud suggested and approved by everyone. It's only a call of when. The discussion is for SummerSlam, so I'd keep an eye on one of the main events of that night. Ringside News reached out to confirm this report about Bray Wyatt. We were told by a tenured member of the creative team that all of these stories about Bray Wyatt's status with WWE are simply rumors. We were not able to confirm that there are any plans for Bray Wyatt's return, as Ringside News exclusively reported on July 13th that a tenured source in the WWE creative team confirmed that Bray Wyatt is not on the company's internal roster either. That being said, his return is still not being discussed because he is not medically cleared to compete yet. At that time, there were no SummerSlam plans for Bray Wyatt. Mentioning an issue that may be taking place in the WWE locker room, this was said about LA Knight by Ringside News. A report is going around that LA Knight might be rubbing some people backstage the wrong way in WWE. This is reportedly going on at the same time as his meteoric rise to the top of the roster, as he gets some of the best fan reactions of the night. The report notes that while Vince McMahon has grown to become a fan of Knight's, he has a long-running reputation of rubbing people the wrong way behind the scenes and just being bad at backstage politics. Ringside News reached out to confirm this story about LA Knight. We were told by a tenured member of the creative team that he doesn't understand understand the WWE locker room yet. He'll get straightened out. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.